on us beginning on time, because I am a firm believer that beginning on time and making sure that you're fulfilling the expectation that you set out, managing the expectation, is one of the biggest parts of creating a successful guest service recovery. So with that being said, I want to say again, I'm just absolutely delighted that we were able to all be together for this guest service recovery webinar series. Thanks to all of you for making the time to do this. I know that this is a very big chunk out of your days, and it's also a very big chunk out of your upcoming Thursday. It's also a very big chunk out of the 4th for you. But my hope is that this is going to be an extremely successful time for all of you as we start going into the spring break time period for many of you, and as we also start looking toward the future and making sure that we have some really good structure for many of you. So I had asked you to share with me in advance a little bit of feedback. I wanted to know a little bit about what are some of the questions that you wanted to have answered during this webinar series? What were a couple of things that you needed to make sure you got out of this series to make sure that it was successful for you? And for those of you that were able to take the time in advance to give me that feedback, I was able to listen to those things. And some of the things that you shared with me were so insightful and interesting to me. I think in some cases it was just people saying things like, I need to make sure that I keep my cool whenever I'm in a stressful situation. And I need to make sure that I maintain my sense of humor without coming off as being condescending. I need to have some tips on how to make sure that my staff doesn't get discouraged. I need a process for our organization in terms of how we handle recovery. So in some cases, it's more nuts and bolts things for some of you, and in other cases, it's more of a culture thing. And in most cases, overall, what I heard from a lot of the feedback was fundamentally, a lot of it has to do with what you come personally to the table with. And so I think you're going to find that this series will offer you a lot of insight in terms of how you not only handle problems and complaints, but also how you manage you. And I think that's going to be really insightful for many of you. So let me introduce myself, because some of you know me, but not all of you know me. And for you brave souls that don't know me yet, and you just went on from a referral, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. I'm Erica Cayley, President of Guest Service Solutions. We're in the midst of celebrating our 15th year of operation. We are guest experience engineers by trade. And what does that mean? That means that we work with service organizations nationally in a variety of different ways. I'm a mystery shopper. I'm a service standards developer. I am a guest speaker. I also help to design complete guest experiences. So we do guest experience mapping from beginning to end in all kinds of environments. And we do workshops just like this. So often with guest service recovery, this could be a 1 to 2 day event on site. So this is something that we tend to invest a lot of time and energy and effort in, because it is such a multifaceted piece of what we do in hospitality. And there's a distinct difference between service and hospitality. I myself have been in the hospitality industry for quite a few decades now, which, you know, it's been a while. A lot of things have changed. I think the way that people communicate problems and complaints have changed a lot, and I get to share that with you mostly on Thursday, as you're going to see. I think what hasn't changed, though, is the human condition and the need to feel heard. So that's what we get to play with, I think, more than anything. And there's a need on both sides to feel heard. So that's, I think, going to be the more valuable piece here. What I also do on the side is I work with a lot of tourism organizations. So I work with things like the Breckenridge Tourism Office, and quite a few of you are here from Breckenridge, like Breckenridge Grand Vacations. Hello. Oh yeah, by the way, and I have my Wabas cup with me for those of you that know what this is. Yes, this was awarded to me a couple of years ago. So we'll talk about that a little later, but I thought for those of you in BGV, you might appreciate knowing that I have my little baby trophy here. I'm a board member of the Pittsburgh Technical College, where I live here in Pittsburgh. And so I get to work with a lot of young hospitality professionals that are up and coming, which is really exciting. In my career, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of organizations, a lot of mountain resorts, and some of you I've known for 15 years. Some of you I'm just getting to know for the first time. I'm hoping to get to know a lot of you much better. If your audio has not yet worked today, Lynn Stewart from Ketchum has been able to share with us that we need to do an extension download through Chrome to be able to use the audio. So there is a function that you're going to see on your screen where you can raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, I'm able to take you off of mute, and then you can share and talk. And I would encourage you to do that. So if you want to be interactive, and I want you to be interactive, please take a second to do that while we still have a chance. I've worked with quite a few mountain resorts, which is why I know so many of you, and I'm really grateful for that. And I've also worked with a lot of Forbes rated properties, Forbes 4 and 5-star rated properties. So I am no stranger to complaints and problems and issues, and maybe the things that make them alike and the things that make them different and the things that guests need. And I hope to share all of that with you today. So what are we doing for the next couple of days here? Let me break it down. Today, we get to focus on in-person service recovery. So, guest is upset, frustrated, guest is feeling unheard. What do we say? What do we do? How do we handle that? And what are some of the things that we're able to kind of pull out to help us figure that out? So there are going to be a few things. I'm going to show you how to calculate a couple of things. Your customer lifetime value, for starters. I'm going to share with you some aspects of empathy so that we understand maybe as a collective where we can go south sometimes, where we fall off of the empathy train. And then when we start to feel inclined to say, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. And that ends up maybe creating more problems than we mean to create. Thinking about the resilience mindset as well today. Hopefully you took an opportunity to print out and look through your workbook. And if you didn't have a chance yet, I will share that with you one more time here. So if you didn't get your workbook yet, I have it here for you. So feel free to take a look at that. That's available to you. You can download that file right now if you want to. You can see that kind of in your control panel there. But this workbook is going to have a lot of meaty details in it, and we will be following along with this as well. Other things that we'll do today, we're going to practice 7 types of generous listening techniques so that we're listening to find the win in a recovery situation. You're going to get a 4-step process for how to recover. You're also going to get a model for the actual recovery moment. So there are a couple of different things that are going to happen today. You're going to get critical tips to manage emotions during the recovery. You're also going to learn a little bit about statistics, the realities of service recovery, so all kinds of stuff. Again, if you want to be interactive, I want you to interact with me, and I am going to be asking some questions on text chat. So for those of you that are joining me now, what I'd love is I'm going to ask this question again, and you're going to see a text chat coming up. What specifically do you need to make sure you learn from this webinar series? So if you haven't yet answered, take a second. Give me a text chat, give me a hello, and give me an answer. We're starting to do a little tech check here just to see who's functioning and who's not, so that we can all communicate and make sure that we're getting the most out of today. So what do you need to make sure you learn from this webinar series to make it a successful experience for you? Some of you, like I said, shared with me, but some of you didn't yet. Thank you, Deb. Training tips for new management. Awesome. We got you. I think I've heard someone else ask for the same thing. Hi from Mount Bachelor. So we'll keep those rolling. Go ahead, and while you are responding and text chatting, what specifically do you need to make sure that you learn from this webinar series? Emily needs non-manager tips. So how do I inspire my team in Winter Park? That's what I'm hearing from that. Yes, Emily? And while we keep rolling, we are going to have a couple of other things coming your way. Yes! I got you. I got you. So this is going to be fun, interactive. Oh, hello, Melinda. Yes, new verbiage for recovery. I've got you covered. And hopefully if we can have enough people, hello, Christina, if we can have enough people interacting today, then you're going to have some friends that are helping with that as well. So for those of you that were able to download the Chrome extension, please raise your hand. And let's see if we can see who's off of mute, who's on mute, who's working, who's not. If you're able to download the Chrome extension, raise your hand. Jessica's got it. Lynn's got it. Jeff's got it. Fantastic. All right. Thank you. All right. So we are going to start, I think, first and foremost in page 2 in your book. It's going to look like that, right? All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for unraising your hand. All right. I think we've got this. We've got this. So let's get started. So I want to get you thinking a little bit about when recovery actually begins and why that's important. Because I think that there is sometimes a bit of a, oh, I'm in the middle of it and now what do I do? Instead of, as a culture, right? As a culture, as your team is thinking a little bit more about how to be profitable from service recovery, where you have to go from there. So here at Guest Service Solutions, one of the things that I think we really focus on is treating our guests in a way that they didn't even realize that they wanted to be treated yet. So here's a story that I wanted to share with you, and this is one of those fabled stories that you think about so much, and I'm going to be really curious to know what you think about this. So here you go. This is a story from Club Med, which is no longer in business, but still I'd say a very, very interesting story. This is from how this particular Club Med in Cancun recovered from a service nightmare. Vacationers had nothing but trouble getting from New York to their Mexican destination. The flight took off 6 hours late, made 2 unexpected stops, and circled for 30 minutes before it could land. Because of all the delays and mishaps, the plane was en route for 10 hours more than planned and ran out of food and drinks. It finally arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning, with a landing so rough that oxygen masks and luggage dropped from overhead. By the time the plane had pulled up to the gate, the soured passengers were faint with hunger and convinced that their vacation was ruined before it had even started. One lawyer on board was already collecting names and addresses for a class action lawsuit. The general manager of this resort, Silvio de Bortoli, he was a legend throughout the organization for his ability to satisfy customers. And when he got word of this horrendous flight, he immediately created an antidote. He took half the staff to the airport where they laid out a table of snacks and drinks and set up a stereo system to play lively music. As the guests filed through the gate, they received personal greetings, help with their bags, a sympathetic ear, and a chauffeured ride to the resort. Waiting for them at the resort was a lavish banquet, complete with a mariachi band and champagne. Moreover, the staff had rallied other guests to wait up and greet the newcomers, and they partied until sunrise. Many of the guests said that this was the most fun that they had had since college. So I share this with you because this ended up becoming the market share that was won instead of the market share that was lost. The battle for market share is not won by demographic trends or rating points or net promoter scores as we measure things so much, but rather by pleasing a guest one at a time and treating guests in a way that they didn't even realize that they wanted to be treated yet. So I'm sure that a lot of you have stories very similar to this in your organizations. The things that make those stories probably more common, or the commonality in those stories, really lies in what I see here on page 2. There are a couple of things that happen in the culture. And for those of you that aren't sure yet what your culture is like, think about this. Step 1, there's a profit mindset about recovery. Cultivating a profit mindset. What's in it for us? What's in it for us to recover appropriately instead of just throwing a comp at them or giving them a free night stay or doing something, throwing a bottle of champagne in the room, getting, it's just a little amenity. Step 2, develop your own personal resilience, right? This isn't about you. This is about them and what do you do? Step 3, listening for a win. What is the win in this situation? They're here to have a good time. And step 4, using a tool, an actual tool. So you're going to get this tool. It's called React, Respond, Recover +1. And some of you might be familiar with this, and you're going to get more familiar with it over time. And you're also going to have some follow-up videos on this in your virtual coaching solution that comes as a follow-up. But for now, just know that this is really kind of one of those common things that makes a service recovery culture work. You have to have a couple of things happen before that angry guest even shows up. You know why? Because problems are going to happen. It's inevitable. You can't be a zero problem organization. I've worked with over 100 organizations and they all have issues. So it's not about whether or not you're going to have a problem. It's about how that problem is dealt with grace and with ease, and in a way that gives face to your guests, and in a way that allows that guest to feel as though there was an experience that then was possible, where an experience otherwise may not have existed at all. And that's the mindset that we all get to be in now for the next couple of days together. So feel free to chime in at any point with text chats, with a raised hand. Let's share. But I'm going to keep going because I think we have a good step 1 to segue into here. This is why it's important. Over 50% of a guest experience is always going to come from emotions that are created during their stay. We have about 8 different ski resorts that are represented here on this very conference call. And you all have things that are in common. You have a town, you have a mountain, you have, lifts, you have restaurants, you have ski school, you have friendly people, you have helpful people. So it's more than that. It's about those emotional drivers like warmth and excitement and pleasure that are going to separate you and then separate your brand even in a recovery situation. So let's talk about what the first step is here. Step 1, cultivate a profit mindset. Profit mindset. All right, so text chat me. How much do you think it costs? How much do you think an angry customer costs your organization? Just text chat me a number, raise your hand, whatever. How much do you think it costs your organization? Is it the cost of a cup of coffee? Is it hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, a free parking space? How much? $1,000, Amy says. Anyone else? How many of you per guest per month? Yeah, $3,000. Jeff says too much regardless. Right. Paul, 45 grand, in the thousands because they tell at least 10 other people. Okay, good. So we're thinking it could range, of course, and there are a lot of things to think about. So let's get thinking first about some of the realities of guest complaints, okay? Okay, Sarah says, thank you. I'm with IconPass. So if a guest is upset enough to not purchase again, it could be $800 to $1,100 per guest. Awesome. Ruben from Aspen, exponential based on how many people they will voice their lament to. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to page 3, shall we? So take a look at page 3. Who cares about guest service? Well, first of all, guest service and hospitality are things that are very different from each other. And there was a guy by the name of, sorry, I'm going to make us all seasick here for a second. There was a guy by the name of Danny Meyer in Setting the Table. Great book. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, please do. I love this quote. You may have seen me share this before. Service describes how you technically deliver a product, right? Hospitality describes how you make the recipient of that product feel. So park that thought for just a second as we start then thinking about the realities of guest complaints. Because there is a feeling that happens whenever a guest has a complaint or an issue. And that's the thing that we do start to forget sometimes. So let's think about it. Okay, first one. Even in a negative economy, experience is a high priority for customers, with 60% often or always paying more for a better experience. Grab your text chats because I'm going to ask you to fill in some blanks here for the next one. A dissatisfied customer is going to tell between 9 and 15 people about their experience. About what percentage of dissatisfied customers do you think tell more than 20 people? Take a guess. What percentage? So for that next one, 50, Stephen says, 30, 25. Okay, oof, these are big numbers. Ooh, I'm getting heartburn. Oof. Okay, so the real number, you might feel a little better about this, knowing that about 13% of dissatisfied customers tell more than 20 people. But there is a technology piece, okay? So there's a difference between telling, and then there's another number for social media posting, which we're going to learn about on Thursday. So the telling is going to be 13%. All right, so 13. Okay, here comes the next one. What percentage of consumers do you think would quit doing business with the company because of a bad customer experience? What do you think? Think about you and your former experiences. What percentage of consumers quit doing business? Okay, 40, 70, higher than 70, 75, 65. Okay, the number is 86. 86% of consumers are going to quit doing business with you because of a bad customer experience. Next one. Oof. For every customer complaint, there are a certain number of customers who have remained silent. And this one's especially important. Take a guess. Go ahead and text chat what your guess is. This one's especially important to me because I think of all of you that evaluate Net Promoter Scores. And for every one guess that you lost, Jeff, you are so close. Ooh, Amy. Oof. Yes, okay. There are 26 other customers have remained silent. So for every one customer complaint, there are going to be 26 other ones that have that same complaint and have said nothing about it. Like, your pillows are too soft. When are you going to get better lighting in this room? I can't find where I'm going in this resort. Every time I walk around, I get lost. So for every customer complaint, there are 26 other customers that have remained silent. Okay, next one. Ooh, this is a good one to know. It takes a certain amount of positive experiences to make up for one negative experience. And this is why we don't have guests that feel like they're, you still have that grumpy guest after you think you fixed it. Yeah, 12. Christina, winner, chicken dinner. Yes, it takes 12 positive experiences to make up for one negative experience. Nice. Okay. So what that means is when you have a guest that's upset or frustrated or disappointed and something just didn't go well, it just didn't go well. It's going to take 12 attempts by your team in some way to kind of tag team this family, this person, this situation in order for that one negative experience to be kind of not made up for, but to be sort of turned around into something that was better than what it originally ended up being. Okay, what percentage of unhappy customers won't willingly do business with your organization again? It's high. I'll give you that clue. It's high. We have choices, right? Higher than 86, Sarah. It's going to be 91. 91. Thank you. So 91% of unhappy customers won't willingly do business with your organization again. Okay, here comes your last one. Attracting a new customer costs how many times as much as keeping an existing one? Guess. Twice? 3 times? 4 times? What do you think? 10 times, Christina says. Jeff says 10. 5. Melinda, yes, 5. So think of all of the marketing dollars that are spent, right? So it costs 5 times as much as keeping an existing one. So every time we pick up the phone, right? And those of you in reservations know, because especially you just kind of finished your busiest selling cycle. And thankfully, right? Things were hot. And there were times where you're just picking up the phone, and it costs money to get that phone to ring. And it's often far more cost effective for us to be able to keep that existing customer. And there are things that we can do to keep that existing customer. On average, loyal customers are going to be worth up to 10 times as much as their first purchase. You can make this note somewhere on the bottom of page 3 if you want. These are some facts, some statistics, some things that you can share with your team, Emily. things that I think that they would really value knowing, that really help to put into dollars and cents, or SENSE, why it's important to think about how we answer the phone. Because could this create a guest service recovery problem for me? Thank you for calling Winter Park Resort. This is Erica. Can I help you? Yes or no? Could that cause a problem? Yeah. It takes 3 seconds. And that sometimes is just enough, because I'm setting the tone. And the tone that I set is the thank you. Absolutely. So for those of you that feel like, I just don't have the energy, Erica, I'm just tired, those are the moments where it's important for us to stand up, and it's important for us to get our head kind of focused around what we're doing and have a model for how we do that, for sure. So let's talk about what is the actual profit that could be had from having this loyal customer that's worth up to 10 times as much as their first purchase. What is the value, the customer lifetime value, and how can I calculate that? Well, here you go. This is the calculation. So if you want to know, if you think it's $1,000, if you think it's $800 to $1,100, this is how you could actually calculate it. This is the formula. Revenue times frequency times lifetime stays times profit margin times retention rate divided by 1 plus discount rate minus retention rate. So for one $2,000 guest spend, and I just kept it kind of average, right? The customer lifetime value is $537,600. That's a $2,000 spend times 2 visits over a lifetime, right? Twice a year for 12 years times 0.7% profit margin. Wouldn't that be lovely? Times a 0.8 retention rate, assuming that I have that high of a retention rate, divided by 1 plus my discount rate minus my retention rate. So you can calculate this. And then what does that end up calculating to? Well, if that guest recommends you and then shares with 12 other people, then that potential guest ends up bringing in over $6.4 million in revenue for you. If that guest complains about you, they're going to tell about 25 other people about their negative experience, and they're going to cost you almost $14 million in potential revenue. So the customer lifetime value can become exponential over time with that one guest. So when you have a guest that does get frustrated, does get upset, I think sometimes just getting in the mindset of understanding, here's why this is important. Because we broke a promise. Whether or not we actually did break a promise, they feel like we broke a promise. And if we break a promise, the money becomes worthless in this whole equation. If there are any questions, wow, how do I do that? How does this work? Please raise your hand. I want to make sure that I'm answering some questions here for you at any point. So I'm just going to check in. Does anyone have a question? Okay, we're just going to keep going. If you do, I want you to chime in. You have that hand that you can raise and add at any point. So if we break the promise, money's worthless. What we also find, though, is that 92% of consumer conversations regarding a customer experience are going to be about people. They're about us. So it's not going to be the room was cold. It's not about the room being cold. It's about the fact that nobody came to fix the problem. Nobody fixed it. It's not about the cold room. It's about the person that didn't fix it. So that becomes the actual issue. So then it becomes, hey, now this is personal. I don't like that, right? And this is where we start to think about, all right, I have to figure out what I bring to this situation, because I've been doing this for 8 years and I'm getting kind of tired. Getting tired of hearing these complaining guests all the time. They're driving me nuts, right? So let's think about that a little bit. We have to develop our own personal resilience, because guests become upset about lots of different things. What do they become upset about? What are some of the reasons why they become upset? Thoughts? Text chat. What are the real reasons? It's because a person didn't fix the problem, but it's more than just that a person didn't fix the problem, right? It's their expectation wasn't met. What else? Text chat me or raise your hand. What are your thoughts here? Thank you. So Jessica, it's in the delivery. Yes. Christina says they felt as though they weren't listened to. Right. Nobody heard me. They're not getting the answer that they want. Okay. Yes, Stephen, absolutely. They're ignored, or they're made to feel like they're silly or unreasonable. Unmet expectations. So somewhere along the way, we didn't set the expectation, or they had a larger expectation than what was maybe realistic, or maybe we just, like I said, didn't manage it properly. All these things. Yes, unrealistic expectations. Treated like everyone else. I'm special. Yes, we're all special, aren't we? Yes. Melinda asks a question. How can we encourage a guest to tell us about a problem during their stay so we have the opportunity to recover rather than wait until checkout? Ooh, that's a good one. And if any of you want to contribute to this and you know that you're able to raise your hand and share verbally, please do. My suggestion is always having, if we're all already in that mindset of cultivating a profit mindset, then one of the things that's already occurring in my culture, Melinda, yeah, Lynn, yes, courtesy calls. It's the check-ins at the front desk and saying things like, how are you enjoying your stay? How do you feel about your room? How comfortable is it? So whenever we're having any kind of an interaction with guests, so be it your server at breakfast, be it the hostess in the restaurant, be it an engineer that's walking through the hallway, and instead of just walking by and going, morning, maybe that engineer is saying, how are you today, sir? Great, thank you. How's your room? Are you enjoying it? If we're already in that space of hey, I'm ready for this, and I'm personally resilient, and I'm okay with whatever answer I get, and having that culture instead of, don't talk to me, I don't want to know, I don't want to know about it. Go find the complaint department, i.e. the front desk. Then we end up having a different kind of brain around what's really going on in recovery. So between what Lynn said, what I shared, and your question, I feel like we have a good maybe thought on that. If someone has something else, yeah, Jeff, making the personal connection early, I couldn't agree more. So it's about, instead of saying, so if you have any questions or concerns, dial 0 during your stay. Anyone here can help you. That's kind of bland. And as a guest, I'd say, yeah, I'm sure. So I would kind of stack it a little bit as a, at the front desk, which is the environment that I know that you're in, and I might say, if your room doesn't feel comfortable for some reason, if it's too cold, if you can't find something, if you need more towels, I want you to call. Anytime, we're here 24 hours a day. So that's a more earnest, genuine, these are some reasons why you might, and I encourage it. Because the generic ends up, as you know, not being maybe taken that seriously. Melinda, if that's helpful, let me know. If you need a follow up to that, I want you to go ahead and text check that, but I'm going to keep rolling if that's okay. So this is a good question, though, that gets us into that kind of resilient mindset. Let's talk about that, because we have to, as a culture, as your organization, have to have a resilient mindset, right? Oops, sorry. Step 2. Perfect. I'm glad. So develop your personal resilience on page 2, step 2. So what does that mean? That means that when you meet a guest for the first time, you know that you're only going to see about 10% of what's going on. I'm glad. You're only going to see about 10% of that guest and what's going on, of course. And same for us, right? We're only going to be sharing probably 10% of what's going on. What I also know, though, is that when we can have some resilience, we're more open to figuring out what the rest of the iceberg might be. Instead of being that engineer that just wants to run through the hallway and walk by a guest and I don't want to hear about it. So what is resilience? It's the ability to recover quickly from illness, change, misfortune, buoyancy, the property of a material that enables it to resume its original shape or position after being bent, stretched, or compressed, elasticity. So think about it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I am a rock, and number 5 being I am, I don't know, Play-Doh. Where are you? Are you a 1? Are you a 5? Are you a 3? How resilient are you, do you think, as a rule? And then how does that change when it's a recovery situation, right? I think a lot of us tend to get very bristled. Amy, I am a 6. Good. Amy's water. She's just water. And sometimes we have to be so fluid, especially in recovery situations, because things can change so quickly, so quickly. So when this guest comes to me, the pool's closed. You ruined my marriage. What? Well, it's really easy for me to automatically get what I call hooked. Okay, so I just raised my voice. I just animated this guy a little bit. Text chat me. Feelings, thoughts, what went on in your head when you heard that? Where did you go? What was the feeling? Jessica, you like that, right? I think he needs like a dental implant or something. We can relate over. Yeah. How did I ruin your marriage? I might feel defensive. I might go, no, I didn't. I might get angry. I might go, I might feel sad and go, I have to hide. I need to go. Somebody take my shift. I have to go jump off a bridge now. Somebody else is gonna look at this guy and they're gonna say, I'm out. Go talk to the manager. Not my problem. So how did I ruin somebody's marriage? Yeah, it's confusing. I'm confused. I end up getting in this, there's a feeling that's occurring here, a feeling, right? So this resilience that I need is starting. It's starting to be needed. Yeah, I could feel dismissive. I was reading some of your reviews as I was getting ready for all of you, and some of these, I mean, it's like worst dining experience I've ever had. That would stab me in the heart. Outdated. Magic carpet restricted for ski lessons only. Value of this excellent resort profoundly diminished by infernal and infuriating resort fees. yeah, this guy probably has an anger management problem. So all of these things start running through our head. And so as soon as we hear sometimes some of these red flag responses, right? I would expect a place like this to have a more professional concierge, Sarah. That is someone that's trying to hook you, right? When I was at Ritz-Carlton in Tahoe, I had an excellent massage. So some of these things, and it's not like every guest sounds like that. I'm just playing with that voice for a second. But there's this issue that we're about to get hooked with. And so I want you to think right now and right on the front of your book. So somewhere, right on the front page or even on the bottom of this page, I don't care where, front of page 1, bottom of page 2. I want you to think of a guest service recovery situation that you were involved with when you got hooked. So what does that mean? You got hooked. I got sucked in. I got sucked into his yelling, and I lost me in the process. I got sucked in, and I started arguing with this guy. And if any of you are able to get off of mute and share a story, I would love to hear a story right now where you felt yourself getting hooked. I got hooked, and I just started to cry because he was so mean to me, and I let him get to me. So write that situation. You can even write just 2 words, whatever reminds you of it. So it could be chocolate pudding. I don't know, whatever. Okay. Does anyone need more time? Did you get your chocolate pudding moment? You're going to use this throughout the rest of our time together today. So I thought it was pretty important to kind of hold on to this for right now. Because in this very moment when this happens, the bell has to hold. Yeah, Sarah, it is hard to hold it together because they definitely are just making you work for it. Whether or not they're giving you the silent treatment, they're sighing, they're walking, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to show you some nonverbals and clues and cues, right? But I can't change the way I feel right now, but I can change the way that I think, and I can change the way that I act. And this is the key to the resilience. Okay, hopefully everyone can still hear me. So I can't change the way I feel, but I can change the way I think and act. Everyone, please just text chat me for 1 second and just tell me, yes, I have my scenario. No, I don't have my scenario. Just yes or no. Yes, I'm back. Text chat me. Yes, I have my scenario. No, I don't have my scenario. Yep. Got it. Got my scenario. Okay, awesome. Well done, everybody. Thank you. And thanks for putting up with my little tech hiccup there. Here we go. So here's some truths, okay? 72% of customers post online, guests, because these are very specific to our world, our hospitality world. 72% of our guests are going to post online reviews because of lack of resolution after escalation. So you didn't help me? Fine. I'm putting it up on the big board. Other truths that are going to help us to develop more resilience is their perspective is our reality in that moment. It's not ours, not yours, not how you feel about it. Well, they asked for it. Well, if they would have just read the confirmation letter, they would have known that. At that point, it doesn't matter. And that sets you free and can help you create that resilient mindset. Another thing to think about here is that money is never going to fix it. Money just doesn't fix it. Ever. So it's not about money. It's going to be about the feeling that you create. 80% of your guests have a complaint this very minute in your property. And Melinda, if you do the things that we were suggesting earlier, you're going to find them. You will ferret them out, and then you will find those magical opportunities to do cool things and do your plus ones, which we'll get to. We create 90% of our own problems. We do. You know why? And if you know why, go ahead and text chat me, but I can tell you the ones that I see is that we have stupid policies, or we don't let the person that is touching the guest in that moment have the authority to do something in a moment. Oh, well, I can't trust them. No, they can't comp a drink. No, they need approval from a manager. Well, when the manager's not there, what are you going to do? It's ridiculous. Little things make an absolutely tremendous difference. Flowers. I've been shocked at how much a simple bouquet of flowers can change a situation. Complaints are opportunities, and smart people ask for those complaints. So these are some of the things that are truths that help you to create the resilient mindset. Okay, so what is a mindset? Let's talk about that. All right, what is your default mindset? Okay. So think about it. What's your default mindset? Go ahead and pick from one of these maybe. Share, text chat. What is your default mindset? Is your default mindset challenged? Is it enthusiastic? Is it curious? Is it bored? Where do you all typically sit in your normal zone as a human? As a human, I am easygoing. Sarah, easygoing. As a human, optimistic. Yeah. Right. Who usually is the one that's going to say, as a human, I am critical. Positive. And most people are going to say the same thing about themselves. Most guests that complain are going to say the same thing about themselves, right? What impact does mindset have on results? If you're an optimistic person, chances are you're going to have an optimistic mindset about recovery, right? If you're a positive person, you're going to have a positive outlook on recovery. Joy. Yes. Maribel is full of joy. So that mindset is contagious. Yet what we do sometimes, Lynn, I am 100% certain that you are determined as a person. And I think that is one of the things that also produces great results when it comes to recovery, because you don't believe that there isn't a way to solve the problem. There's always a way. So whatever your default mindset is, it creates a giant impact on results if you let it. And that's, to me, the key thing is you have to let it. So roughly 50 to 75% of how your team are going to perceive the organization's climate can be traced to the actions of the leader, right? So if you as a leader are a positive person, 50 to 75% of how your team responds is going to be positive as well. In meetings, leaders have a profound influence on others' emotions and the patterns of thinking. And in many instances, the leader's state of mind is going to define the upper critical limit for the state of mind of the people they lead. So it's really hard sometimes if you have somebody who's kind of a director level who doesn't have a positive mindset about recovery, and you're trying really hard to be able to have an influence in recovery. So if you find that you have some sort of a conflict, then that will have an impact, and you need to talk about that. I think the other piece is if you're being honest with yourself and you're saying, you know what, my mindset usually is pretty bored. I'm pretty angry. I'm pretty doubtful. That's going to cause some stress for you. Also, if you are stressed, but you're genuinely an optimistic person, that is going to affect how you think about recovery. So ask yourself as well before a guest comes up to you and says, the pool's broken, you ruined my marriage. Think of, am I stressed right now? So what happens to you when you're under stress? Well, normally you're going to be a great team player. You'll be diplomatic. You'll be outgoing. You're going to be a team, good-natured, positive. And then when you're under stress, you just want to go away. You feel pretty detached and stubborn. So this mindset is going to absolutely show up in your recovery. This is a culture thing. And this is something that you as a team, and I love how many of you are teams that are joining us today. Yeah, stress makes me overthink too. I go into analysis paralysis. And then it's really hard to create an appropriate recovery because it just feels like, oh, okay, just anything right now, just to make it go away. You become almost a perfectionist as well, right? So these are some of those traits of somebody who is under stress, no matter what your default mindset is. So if your tank is empty and you know that you're stressed, how do you regain some of that resilience? Some of the things that are going to help you before you even connect with your guest is to be able to focus on your purpose, right? What is my purpose here? You're not just a reservationist. You're not just a front desk staff member. You're not just a director of food and beverage or just a general manager. You have a purpose, and your job is to create happiness. What could I contribute that would be meaningful there? Focus on gratitude. What am I personally grateful for, right? I talk a lot about creating gratitude because that is something that we're all responsible for doing, is creating gratitude. It's not something that people have to create for you. What are my choices here? Ask yourself, what are my choices? What am I afraid of here? So that's a way that you can help to create resilience in a recovery situation as well. Sometimes you just have to move. Usually, if I have the luxury of being able to walk away from a situation first, a recovery situation, that's awesome because I can just think for a second. Breathe. So I'm going to give you a couple of breathing techniques here as well. All right. Some barriers. We know non-action sometimes can be a big barrier to a resilient mindset. So there are other barriers, though, and I think energy vampires are probably some of the biggest barriers to a resilient mindset. So it could be gossip about a guest, about a coworker, about you. Overconsumption of virtually anything is going to suck your energy and not allow you to be present when that's needed. Overengaging in something that doesn't bring you alive. So overengaging in anything that is just kind of sucking the life out of you. Even overengaging in work too much. So you have to balance it out. Drinking that Comparschlager. So for those of you that have decided that you love going on Facebook to see what your old high school, nemesis is doing, just so that you can tell yourself a story about how you haven't really lived up to your fullest potential, go shut down Facebook right now. Stop drinking the Comparschlager. It's just going to hurt you. And then finally, victim or hostagehood. Nobody's a victim. And these are things that just suck the life out of you. So these are ways that you can develop resilience, things to avoid that help you to develop resilience so that you're ready for service recovery. I know this sounds a little deep, but when you start here, it helps you to think a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to give you some tips for managing your emotions on page, sorry, it's on actually page 4, not on page 3. Who has a question before we go too much farther? Who has a question, a concern about developing a resilient mindset? Good so far? Are we doing well? You want to take a break? Let's do that. Let's take a nice 5-minute break, and then when we come back, what I'd like to do is get you started on top 10 tips for managing your emotions. So that way you're always kind of staying in that resilient mindset. So go ahead and take 5. And when we come back, we'll rejoin on page 4, not page 3, page 4. Thanks, everybody. And if you'd like to just stay and have a conversation with me, you're welcome to. Just go ahead and raise your hand or text chat, and we can answer any questions that you might have offline. I'm going to stay right here. Okay, we have 1 minute and 40 seconds left until we come back. If you never left, go ahead and let me know that. And give me a little check-in for those of you that have hung around. Too fast, too slow, just right. How are we doing? Good pace. Thanks, Emma. I appreciate that feedback. Amy says just right. Romina, just right. Good pace. Seems like a good place. Just right. Thank you, Amy. Awesome. Do you know how creepy it is to feel like you're talking to yourself? It's been very odd to have this experience on this side. So I appreciate all the notes. So in the next 17 seconds, go ahead to page 4. Have a couple of cool things going on here. Top 10 tips for managing you. Welcome back, welcome back. So I like to start from the bottom and work my way up, kind of David Letterman-ish. But I like the idea of the order of them because I think that's important as well. So number 10, breathe, don't sigh. So think about that. When I'm trying to maintain my resilience, go ahead and just do a breathe in and a breathe out. In through your nose and out through your nose. So that oxygenation of your blood in and out, that's going to create more space for you to problem solve instead of the sigh is going to actually close up your ability to be able to make good decisions. So my suggestion to you is get in the habit of breathing. Guests can hear a sigh just as much as you can hear a sigh. Remember, perception is reality. So the more you try on their perception, the easier it's going to be for you to problem solve. You do have control. There are things that you do have control over, and the more that you are able to just focus on the things that you can control, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to be able to solve the problem because we're focusing on the feeling. And that's the big thing that I think a lot of guests really want and expect and need. And this is why escalation occurs, is because we don't focus on the feeling. We try to fix it. We try to throw money at it. And money is not what they want. Money is just part of it. It's not all of it. Number 7, what's in it for you to fix this? What's the end game? What's my motivation here? So that's a great way that I manage myself. What's my incentive? So it could be that, hey, I just get some karma points today and I really need them. Hey, that's something. What's in it for me is that this guest is going to end up being nice to everybody for the rest of her stay, when otherwise this could have been really bad. So I think thinking about that. Express yourself. Social psychologists always suggest, especially in a recovery situation, that the better job you can do of articulating your disappointment, your sadness, how you feel about what happened, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to be able to be more resilient. So be able to say something like, I'm so disappointed that you had to wait around that long. I'm sorry that happened. That allows for a couple of different things to occur. So for now, though, just make sure you make a note of expressing yourself on page 4. Think big picture. Remember the customer lifetime value? $6 million plus potentially as a result of turning this one experience around. That's a big deal. I want to know what you can do. I don't want to hear about what you're going to try. So tell your guest what you can do. Number 3, words are x-rays. So remember that. Don't just listen for what is being said, but listen underneath what is being said. So when a guest says something like, so what are my options? They're saying something else. Emily, thanks. I'm sorry. Question. Does saying sorry or you're disappointed that mean admitting fault? And is that okay in recovery? Yes, it is okay in recovery. I think it depends on the situation. If it's a situation where it may be kind of a legal situation where a customer slips on the floor, right? You want to be careful with what you say because that could create a lawsuit, of course. But I think if it's a situation where you have, let's go back to the cold room. No, I'm sorry that I feel so terrible that you were cold. I'm sorry that happened for you. I'm sorry you felt that way. I can say that. That's okay to say. And that's helpful to say. Like, oh, this must be so frustrating for you. I'm sorry about that. Let's see what we can do. So be sorry for the feeling that they're having, not necessarily sorry for what happened, unless it's something that you know that you did and you need to figure it out. No, I'm sorry that you weren't aware of the lift being a beginner's only lesson lift. I'm sure that absolutely changed everything for you when you got here. Okay. What's the point in my arguing with her at this point and saying, well, if you would have looked online, you would have known that? Number 2, change the story. Of course, it's my pleasure. Change the story. I have a story of a guest who is sitting, getting her pedicure, and she's filing her nails. And when the pedicure's done, she looks down at her toes and she looks at the esthetician and she says, "This is the worst pedicure I've ever had in my entire life." Throws the nail file at the esthetician and storms out. Okay. So what is your immediate thought of this woman? Oh, Jessica, take ownership even if you weren't the one that made the mistake. Yes, be the end of the line to solve the guest problem. Right, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a try. But what do you think of this woman that throws her nail file at the esthetician and storms out? I'm sure quite a few choice things, right? But what if I told you that same morning she found out that she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then when she called to see if she could cancel, they told her, the spa told her that she would have to pay the full amount of her, of her pedicure because she was calling within the 24-hour cancellation period. That completely changes how you feel about her. Yeah, she has more than that going on, so much more than that going on. And sometimes it's hard for us to see that, even though we literally all have more than that going on. We do. And again, it's that kind of those karma points, right? So thinking about ways that you can change the story and say, for someone to act that way, whose normal disposition is that she is a positive person, she is enthusiastic, because that's the general state that we all are in. We're in a state of calm, we're in a state of happiness, we're in a state of peace. And for that to come out in such an angry way, where I'm saying, the pool's broken, you ruined my marriage, I have to change the story about that. This guy was hoping this was his, kind of savior for his marriage. And God, I feel bad for him. Whatever. Finally, be grateful, but expect ingratitude. Be grateful that they came to you with the problem, with that complaint, with that issue, that they felt comfortable and confident enough or secure enough to even share that with you. But don't expect them to thank you. We crave love in our industry. We just do as a group. But we won't always get it. We just won't. Expect ingratitude and you won't be disappointed. Know that intrinsically that you are doing the right thing, you did do the right thing, and it was a good thing. Sarah says, in a small town, we would also need to be concerned about the spa we sent her to. Maybe apologize on her behalf. Yeah, I just feel awful that you had that experience. I'm so sorry. I will absolutely have a conversation and see what we can do. All right, so I wanted to give these to you so that it's like, how do I develop resilience in those times when I don't want to be resilient? I'm not feeling it. Because it's our job to be the thermostat and not the thermometer, right? So what's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer? The thermostat is the one that adjusts the temperature, whereas the thermometer is taking the temperature, right? So hold that thought for just a little bit. We will come back to it. All right, any questions, any concerns before we get into listening for a win? Once we have kind of that profit mindset and we're focused on being resilient, we're developing our personal resilience, it's so much easier then to be able to listen for a win, because we're thinking now about there is a win in every situation that comes to me. One time I was the manager on duty and I had a large couple. I don't mean wide, I mean tall. And they were checking in, and to make a long story short, they were checking in for just Valentine's Day weekend, this very weekend we just had. They were a last minute booking. They didn't guarantee their bed type, so they got a room with 2 double beds. That was obviously too small. So I get the phone call from the front desk. Erica, this is Michelle. We have some guests at the front desk and they want to talk to the manager on duty. And so automatically I would always say, Michelle, don't throw me to the wolves. Can you give me some backstory, please? And so then I was able to gather enough information. And what I learned was that they were a doctor and a dentist coming in from outside of Philly. And they were going to be staying with us for the whole weekend. Obviously not happy with the bed type that they had received. I also asked, what do we still have available? And pickings were pretty slim. So I already knew walking into it that I was going to have some problems. So I met them at the front desk and I shook hands with them, and immediately I just looked at both of them and I said, I can automatically see that a room with 2 double beds is not going to make for a comfortable weekend for you two. And they looked at me and they said, no, it won't. And I said, so my job right now is to see what I am going to be able to do instead. We've already done a little bit of investigating, but I think I need to do a little bit more. So if you're able, I would love it if I might be able to buy you two a drink and a little bit to eat since you just arrived. You must be hungry. It would be nice to relax a little bit. Let me do a little bit of investigating and see what I can figure out. And I said, can you tell me a little bit about maybe what things might be comfortable? And here's why. And I shared with them what we had left, which was that room with 2 double beds. I had a parlor suite and I had a guest house. So we walked through that and they said, honestly, I don't want to be sleeping in the fetal position for 3 nights. And I said, I completely understand. I'm going to do everything that I can to figure this one out for you. And so we looked and I ended up coming back and I said, so I said, what I think would make the most sense, if it's okay with you, is that I share with you the options. I want to let you have a chance to see them and take a look at them and choose which one you like the most. And they were amenable to that. Unfortunately, none of the options really worked out very well, but I spent the time with them and I listened to what they liked about each one, what they didn't like about each one. I was able to pick up on cues of where they were going for dinner, what they were planning to do while they were with us. They ended up going with the room with 2 double beds. Then we put that together and bridged it, and they ended up staying. In the meantime, of course, we took care of them for breakfast the next day. We were able to, I believe that we sent some flowers to the room. We also sent a note of apology. We really just kind of doted on them and took care of them, right? 12 positive experiences to make up for 1 negative experience. So we did a lot of that over that weekend. And it turns out we then got a letter a week later, and I was just white as a ghost, waiting to see what this letter was going to say. The letter ended up saying that while we ended up staying in a room that didn't work out very well, thanks to your team and trying as hard as they did, we had an absolutely delightful time, and we will definitely come back, and we will definitely tell our friends, thank you so much. So it was their fault. They didn't guarantee, but in the moment that didn't matter. And we tried everything that we could to not fix the problem. And we truly kind of didn't fix the problem, but we listened for the clues of the ways that we could still create a win in here. And that's the moral of listening, is that you're not listening for a fix. You're listening for a win. So let me give you kind of some things that you want to think about with this. So the idea is that people are not going to respond to what they hear. They're going to respond to what they understand. Okay? So I'm going to give you a few tips on page 5. Well, let's start on page 4, actually. And the reason why is because we listen to some things that we see first before we actually open up our ears, right? And when I see you for the first time, there are a few things that happen. Non-verbally, I'm listening. Tone of voice, I'm listening to. And the words, I'm listening to. So take a look. Here's some cards. Non-verbally. So here's a woman, and she's pointing like this. Now, what is this person saying without saying it? She's saying, now you listen to me. Right? And this is non-verbally saying it's aggressive or decisive, it's authoritative, it's insulting in some cultures. Non-verbally, I'm saying with this, I'm not with you. When I fold my arms, I'm not with you. So this could be concealing information, dissatisfied, disagreed. So I can read a lot of these things. Okay, everybody pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. This is the gorilla stance, right? This is aggressive, authority, dominance. I can listen to these things without that customer, that guest saying a word. I feel safe and secure about what I do. So this could also be a negative or a defensive position. So we listen to these things that guests do. These are also things that we tend to do sometimes, right? I'm not so sure about what's been said. So when I rub my nose, I'm not sure about what's been said. Look, sorry, I don't have much time when a customer's looking at their watch. Could also be, here. While this looks normal, right? Pleased to meet you. The farther the hand is from the body, the more the person wishes to maintain distance. So when you shake hands with a guest, which I recommend, even in a recovery situation, the more you lean in to a recovery situation, lean in, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to have a better recovery. If I stand out here to shake hands, I'm feeling threatened and I'm scared and I'm feeling defensive. So I can already feel that and see that, and that creates more of a power struggle in a situation. So you want to be careful. So non-verbally, I listen to a lot of things. When I'm generously listening, which is listening with a deep appreciation to the reality, feeling, and commitment of somebody else, which contributes to the other person, the experience of being understood, then what I'm doing is I'm being able to digest aloud the information that I'm getting from that handshake, or I'm digesting aloud the information I'm getting from The pool's broken, you ruined my marriage. So when you listen to learn and digest aloud, you create a space for that guest to feel like you're empathizing with them. Okay? So generous listening is something that we can do verbally and non-verbally. Generous listening means that I open up in some cases. So watch your body language in recovery. Things that you shouldn't do in recovery, things like this. You shouldn't do this in recovery. It should be more of a lean in. You shouldn't do this in recovery. This means that's my final answer. So unless you want to create more of a diplomatic kind of a negotiating situation, avoid that. You want to create more open, walk away with that guest somewhere. Try to motion to a spot that is quieter, more away. Words and tone of voice, of course. We know these things, right? You want to listen, though, as well over the phone. We don't have the body language piece. So words make up 20% of your likability, and your tone of voice makes 80% of your likability. So if you want to make a side note of that on page 4, you're welcome to. So what happens here? There's this idea of empathy that occurs, right? So when I'm listening, and I'm listening with my eyes, and I'm listening with my ears, and I'm listening to all the things that are going on, it's this idea of empathy. I'm generating empathy for somebody. So here's an example. What do you see in this scenario? Go ahead and give me a text chat. What do you see in this particular situation? Teamwork. Okay. Yeah. So things that show teamwork or helping, we see calm faces, sort of, helpfulness and caring. Yes. We see that they're reduced angular distance. They have sort of a diagonal body position toward each other. They're cooperating. They're collaborating. What do you see here? Now, I know some of you are not in food and beverage, and some of you are, but I don't think that really matters. Okay, aggressiveness, stress. Hang on, I can't help you right now. Slow down, right? I can't take one more ticket. It's defensive. Don't tell me. Back off. Yeah. So we can see a lot of these things. And when you see it, there's this thing that happens in your brain and this thing that happens in your body and in your heart. And then it also changes how you react and how you respond. So there are these aspects of empathy that occur that affect how we listen. So these 6 aspects, and I'm going to go through these rather briefly just in the interest of time, but the first one is emotion contagion. So the second you saw one of those pictures, there's the sense that an emotion is occurring in somebody else or that an emotion is expected of you. So when I see a guest that's stomping around my lobby, there's the sense that an emotion is occurring or in another, or that an emotion is expected of me. Number 2, it's my ability, empathic accuracy, to identify and understand that state and thought or intention in myself and others. So can I accurately pinpoint what's going on? Or is that guy just walking really fast? So you start looking at behaviors. Is he staring at me and then walking back and then walking quickly? Is he sighing and rolling his eyes when he looks at me and keeps walking? So am I accurate about that or not? And sometimes you need a backup to help you. Emotion regulation. This is where the hook starts, right? Because it's okay, an emotion is happening. Is this right or not? I'm getting hooked right here. Step 3. Being self-aware of your own emotions in a situation, particularly during the strong one. So there's that guest, right? The pool's broken, you ruined my marriage. Yep, I was right. He was looking at me. Okay, so I am being aware of my emotions now because I was right, and now I have to be able to do something about it. This is my ability to put myself, to make that transfer, perspective taking. How can I put myself in that person's shoes to sense what they might want or need? Well, we just went through kind of these top 10 tips for managing you that are going to help you to be more open to the empathy that's required. I think the other thing that happens is your ability to use a couple of these tools that I'm going to give you. But just make a note here for number 4, perspective taking. 5, concern for others. So this is where we start to lose it, right? Over time, some of you said, I'm just kind of tired, to be honest with you. After years of doing this, I'm starting to not have concern for others. I'm getting jaded. It's the ability to care about another person and engage in a way that displays your care and compassion. So it's one thing to be able to know what's going on, and then it's another to really take the time to try to put yourself in those shoes and trying on another pair of shoes. That takes resilience. That does take you focusing on you and what you bring to the table. And number 6, finally, perceptive engagement. This is being able to do something skillful in a way that works for somebody else and not for yourself or for the company. All right, so how? How do we do it? Well, one technique that I use a lot that helps me with emotion regulation and perspective taking is the cushion. So when a guest says, for what I paid, it was just okay. Well, there's a way that I'm able to manage how I feel in that situation, because it would be very easy for me to say, oh yeah, well, what was wrong with it? And it's another one for me to be able to artfully respond with something that has grace and something that has courtesy. Here's a situation where there was a botched up room service delivery order at 2:30 in the morning. So the cushion in this example sounded like, I'm so sorry. It's especially terrible that this happened at 2:30 in the morning. Let me investigate, please. So the idea of a cushion is, think about a cushion. A cushion is you and I are sitting in the same spot together, and we can relate to each other on that cushion, right? So it could also sound like it's frustrating when you're on hold for so long. You're feeling ignored because you've called 3 times for someone to fix your heat and no one has come up to fix that yet. So the fact that we haven't been able to find a dining reservation for you this weekend, I'm sure has you a little stressed out. I can understand why. So these cushioning examples, the idea is to be able to kind of get on the same side of the issue together. And when you're able to do that, you're able to do something else then and put yourself in that next next technique that's needed. So it's a reset technique. So I use the cushion and then I reset. So what I do is a quick reset technique. Emily, you can use this at the front desk. Ruben, Maribel, Sarah, you can use this at the front desk. Take up your 10-5. You know your 10-5 rule, right? You smile and make eye contact at 10 feet. You greet or you speak at 5 feet, right? Take up that physical space. So if it's a reset, I want to make myself bigger instead of make myself smaller in a recovery situation. Sometimes that means get out from behind the front desk. Sometimes that means walk around. Sometimes that means shaking hands. Sometimes that means walking over to where the problem is. Take up your space. Make sure that you're leaning into the issue. And here's your breathe, don't sigh. Breathe down to ground. Breathe down to ground. It's easy to lose yourself in a recovery situation. So you have a cushion and you have a quick reset technique. And between those two things, you open yourself up to being able to use these 6 aspects of empathy. I know this is a lot coming at you at one time and it's really meaty, but I think when you listen to the recording of this and you're able to start pulling this apart, I think it's going to be very helpful for you. So the quick reset technique plus the cushion helps you to start using the actual recovery tool. Look how much you've done already. All right, so let's skip over to the recovery tool on page 6. Recovery tool on page 6 is going to look like this. Let's get meaty, and we'll go backwards to go forward. So use the React, Respond, Recover +1 tool. Sarah, thank you. A former concierge that I worked with would slip on her heels in certain situations to appear bigger. Nice. That's the idea of take up your 10-5. Yeah, it's time to kind of straighten up, be attentive, pay attention. Maybe you need to brighten up a little bit. So what else do you all do? What other tips do you all have for how do you get ready when it's time to recover? What do you do? Go ahead and add those, and I'm going to put this up for you. Use the tool. On page 6. So the guest is not always right. No. Is the guest always right? No. Yes, Amy, take a deep breath. Breathe, don't sigh. Breathe down and ground. Stay grounded. Again, because it's very easy to want to run away. It's very easy to almost go numb in your legs when you're handling a complaint or a problem or a guest is yelling at you. Breathe down and ground. And that cushion is going to keep you there. That cushion where you're going to be able to say something like, you never should have had to wait like that. If I would have had a steak that didn't make me happy, I would have felt the same way. Stand up behind the desk or walk around the desk. Yes, that's the idea of take up your 10-5, Melinda. Yes. So the more you take it up, the less small you feel. So when I'm hiding behind the front desk or I'm hiding behind my phone and I have my headset on like this, I don't feel powerful. I feel like a gumdrop. So get big, get out there, because solutions come to you much more easily. Okay, so the guest is not always right on the top of page 6, but the guest gets to win. Your guest gets to win. So I'm listening for the win. Just like in my Valentine's Day scenario, listen for that win. All right. So how do we find the win? First of all, we want to be creating an environment where they're going to be honest with us and telling us what's going on. So I'm going to put this up and do your best to try to copy some of these things. Maribel, I put my hair in a ponytail. That's a smart move because it makes your face more visible in recovery and it creates a more powerful appearance. Very smart. Put my hair in a ponytail. All right, so react. Try on their perspective through a cushion. Remember, perspective taking with your empathy, emotion regulation with your empathy. So if there's an emotion that's occurring in me, yes, the Superman pose, Superman. So with that emotion regulation with empathy, there is an emotion that is occurring in me that I need to stop because I'm getting hooked. I'm getting hooked. And if their perspective is my reality, I want to try on their perspective. Sounds to me like you've had a very rough day. So there's that react piece, okay? So why would I make myself that vulnerable? Why would I do that? Yeah, the customer lens, it sets you free. It just does. Think of all of the different things that a guest is feeling or thinking, and I say this a lot, but travel does really bad things to really good people. They're all good people. They're trying to make a nice vacation for their family. And in many cases, it was a logistics CrossFit workout to try to get this vacation to occur. And it is just brutal and frustrating when things don't go well and they don't go right. And you're there. Stephen says, it puts you on the same side, working together to solve the issue. So there's your cushion, right? Your cushion puts you on the same side to solve that issue. So it sounds like you have had just a rough, awful day. And I feel so bad that that's happened. So let's talk. Let me see what we can do to figure this one out. So this idea of react gives you the opportunity to try on their perspective, to open it up. Show sorry, show empathy, show concern. Don't just say sorry. What does sorry look like? My husband was supposed to be on a standby flight getting home from South Korea last year, Thailand last year, and he was promised by the gate agent that he was on standby. And then when the doors were closing, he walked up to her and he's like, why am I not on that flight? And she looked at him and realized that she didn't put him on that flight. And here's all she did. She looked at him and went, she just physically acted like a knife was just like lodged into her chest. Like, I have failed. I am so sorry. And it was such an interesting, telling way. And that's a very cultural thing, of course, but the idea of showing sorry and empathy and concern and what that can do. I'm so thankful you told me. Thank you very much for telling me about this. Sorry looks like a furrowed brow. It looks like a lean in. It looks like hunched shoulders. It looks like, thank you. It's not I sincerely apologize for this inconvenience. Thank you for letting me know, with a handshake. That doesn't put you on the same side. Respond. That's inviting their story. So tell me what happened. I want to know. Let me know tell me about what just happened. Separate the practical and emotional aspects to find the root cause. I'm going to show you that in a second. Give some facts, save face, not too much information. I'm going to show you that as well. Avoid you phrases, use I phrases, and then make sure that you confirm that. Did I understand correctly? So get a confirmation in their words. Did I understand you correctly? Did I understand the situation properly? And then recover. Provide 3 options and let the guest choose. So provide 3 options that solve the practical aspect of the recovery. So my room is cold. So there are 3 options. Well, we can either move to another room. I can have engineering take a look again, or we can offer a space heater. Which of those do you think or do you feel would be the most helpful? We could also do all 3. So provide 3 options and let the guest choose. And the reason why I say 3 is because one's going to suck. One's going to be the one that you know they're going to go for. And the third one is probably going to be a surprise. And believe it or not, 30% of your guests are actually going to go for that. Even the sucky one. It's shocking to me sometimes how problem solving, if you give choices, people choose things that you never thought they would go for. But if you say, how would you like us to fix this? They're going to say, well, I want you to comp it. That's what I want you to do. Well, that's not practical. And that's also not truly a fix. So if you've done the react part properly and you've done the respond part properly, then the recover part is pretty easy. This is just the practical fix. The punishment fits the crime. So if I took time away from the guest, I want to give time back to the guest. So for example, let's say that the room isn't ready at a 4 o'clock check-in time, and then I don't get my room until 6 p.m. You took time away from me. So give time back to me. So either you give me a late checkout, or you buy me a nice dinner, or you reimburse me for at least 2 hours that I wasn't able to check in. Maybe those are your options that you provide. Say what you will do and when, and then follow through, then follow up. Okay, there's a difference between follow through and follow up. And I detailed that out for you a little further on page 12, which you can read between now and Thursday. But that follow through, then follow up is going to be a little different. And I'll ask you for the distinguishment between the two. Okay, +1. This is where the profit comes from. This is the personalization of an extra something. It's using your signing privileges. It's sending a note of apology. It's focusing on the emotional aspect of a complaint. So this could be focusing on how, if that guest felt embarrassed in front of family and friends, what can you do to give face back to that guest? Is there a way that you might be able to host some kind of a cocktail party for them? Is there a way that you could hook this guy up and get him some tickets to some, I don't know, little event that's going on, I'm trying to think of some sort of a little concert, some sort of get a picnic basket of food together for them, get them maybe a special table where they can see their kids skiing over at the front of the restaurant. So something that wasn't asked for, something above and beyond that addresses the emotional aspect of the complaint. Okay, so this is the react, respond, recover, +1 model, which I want to break down for you in further detail, but I wanted to give you some time on page 6 to kind of write this down if you wanted to. And I want to pause and see if we have a question, if we have an ad, if we have a concern. Who has a question? If you have a question, raise your hand or text chat. How do you put this together, right? What happens now? Sarah, what if your options for resolving and or coming up with solutions for an upset guest are limited due to strict company policy? Okay, so there will be times for sure that you're going to have options for resolving that are limited. There are also ways that you can do things that are perhaps around that company policy. So is there a specific thing that you're thinking of, Sarah? Because what I'm saying perhaps maybe might not fit within your parameters. Does it have to do with ski school, or does it have to do with So while Sarah's typing, my initial response, and feel free to contribute and answer as well, everybody, but if your options for resolving are limited, what I would suggest is coming up with some solutions. Okay, a guest is upset that we can't give them a refund on a pass because they didn't purchase insurance. Okay. Yep. So options could be perhaps a offer to come ski another time in the future. Options could be that they want a refund on a pass, though, because of the fact that the weather was yucky, or they just weren't able to come and ski that day. They weren't able to use it for whatever reason. Bad travel situation. So depending on the situation, it may end up being that you provide them some concession somewhere else. It may be that you take a look at the refund that they're asking for there. Is there a way that you can offset that cost somewhere else? Is there something else that you can do to enhance the experience that they are having? So I can't give you that, but I can give you this. Here's what I can do. Is there a way that you can say yes to something else? What is it that they want? What could possibly make that experience that they are having worth it? So how can you give that money back to me perhaps in a different way? That might be my best suggestion for you in that situation. There will be some situations where, due to strict company policy, it's not possible. You will have a lot of guests that do not like the P word, and most guests don't think policies apply to them. So that always is a bit of a trick, right? Is to, how do I have the conversation about policy when people don't feel like policies apply to them? So I think in that situation, you want to think of, how might I be able to give them back that money in another way, somewhere else? Can I buy you dinner at the Foggy Goggle? I know that that's not going to be a refund on the pass, but I would love to be able to try and make the experience that you have here as awesome as I possibly can. Or listen, next time you come back, let me get a complimentary pass for you. Something like that. Okay. Thanks. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I want to focus on this idea of separating the practical and emotional aspects of a complaint. So here it is. A guest was checked into a dirty room. He returns to the front desk and says, I made this reservation months ago, and I was patient and waiting for the room to be ready. Now I go all the way up there and the room is not ready. All right, so this to me is one of the main keys of recovery, is being able to see that there are really two pieces of fixing a complaint. Is that there's an emotional root cause and there's a practical root cause. So think about that. I gave you a whole lot to work with as well in terms of tone of voice, body language, words, emotionally. How do you think this guest is feeling? Just text chat some possible emotions that you think this guest is feeling. He's frustrated. He's neglected. He's over it. He's tired. He's tense. Yeah, maybe even a little confused. And confusion leads to, yep, anticipating things getting worse. I'm not special to you. I want to be special. So there's a lot of potential emotions that we obviously need to make sure that we're accurate about, right? Am I accurate with this or not? And that cushion is going to allow me to do that, to be able to kind of ferret that out and determine, try on their perspective. How would I feel if I was checked into a dirty room? I did. I made this reservation months ago. I feel like I gave you every indication that I was coming. Yeah, that you're unprofessional. So, and then the practical root cause is the room isn't ready. Practical root cause is I had to walk all the way back down here. Practical root cause is I waited. So there are a lot of issues, right? Lot of issues. And if we don't solve both, the recovery is incomplete. So if I say, okay, I'm going to send housekeeping right up right now to clean your room. Is that good enough? Yes or no? No. If I say, yeah, no. If I say, Mr. Smith, I'm so sorry that this happened. We're going to send somebody right up. Is that good enough? Still no. Right. Because I'm not really solving the emotional and the practical. Christina, no. Right. Thank you, everybody. So the reaction has to help to solve some of the emotional root cause. So my reaction should be, if I worked at a front desk and somebody was checked into a dirty room, I would be shocked and I would be almost a bit horrified. So that should be part of solving the emotional root cause. Oh no, Mr. Smith, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. Oh, how embarrassing. Well, let me assure you that we're going to take care of this for you right away. Yes, you've waited so long, and you're right, you have been extremely patient. So I want to take care of this for you absolutely immediately. Please come with me. Would you like a cocktail? Let's have you relax. Please bring your family. In fact, I have a couple of tokens here for some video games. You want to take your family? I'm going to get it all taken care of, and I'm also going to have our inspector take a look at it, make sure that it's absolutely perfect. I'm sorry. I'm so embarrassed. What else can I do for you right now? Is that fixing the whole problem? Is that is that going to fix emotional and practical? People love cocktails. Yeah, depending. He might be like, I don't drink, right? Or I'm a recovering alcoholic. He might say something like that. So I might be careful with what exactly I offer. Am I solving the problem? Yes. So I did something there. So I'm closer. I'm maybe not even 100%. My full recovery is going to occur perhaps a lot later whenever I have him all the way up there, but I'm a heck of a lot further ahead than, okay, I'm going to send somebody right up, because he saw that I was horrified and it was embarrassing. And we don't have alcohol at our property, so something that works with the guests or family. Yeah, so whatever works, right? Whatever you have, use your resources. Good. Get them out on the slopes. You're not here to wait. Yeah, Sarah, an upgrade. This was embarrassing and I feel so awful. So what I'd love to be able to do is see if we can find something larger and just allow you all to spread out that's ready now. How does that sound? Great. So if I'm separating the two and I'm solving the embarrassment and I'm solving I value you, I appreciate you. You did make this reservation months ago, and I'm so grateful that you did, because you are fantastic and we love having you every year. And you were so patient, and I'm really grateful for that. If I solve that first, whatever practical fixes I come up with are going to be met with, oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. Instead of, see to it that you do. I have a much higher likelihood of having cooperation. So let's do that again with the next one. All right. Here's the problem. Someone named Jeff said he was going to send me a quote yesterday. Well, I got a quote, but it's not from Jeff. It's from Amy. And the dates are wrong, and there are 3 properties on here, which are not what I wanted. I'm just trying to plan ahead here, and it feels like you don't even want my business. Ugh. She sounds delightful, doesn't she? So, emotional root causes of this problem. What is the problem? What's the problem here? Well, there's 2. There's an emotional problem and there's a practical problem. So start first, text chat me. What's the emotional problem? This is for all you reservationists out there. Not that you've ever heard this before, I'm sure. Being passed off, right? I'm already just a number, and this day hasn't even started. This isn't personalized. Good. Not being listened to. Is this the kind of place where I want to spend my money? I have clients that I work with, properties that I work with, and they book $20,000 vacation residences a week. Yeah, confusion. They don't feel heard. Doesn't feel important. Wonderful. Ruben says, lack of attention and frustrated that I'm losing trust in your operation, and I haven't even made a reservation. So this is the emotional root cause. Okay, practical root cause. Sure, we can see that. And we get so tempted to say, okay, well, I'll just fix up the quote and I'll send that over to you with, what days did you want again? Instead of going back to that and saying, you're right. This quote doesn't look right at all, especially after hearing what you've just shared with me. So I am so glad that you called so that we can take a look at this together. And thank you very, very much for taking some time with me right now. Again, my name is Erica, and I do work with Amy and I do work with Jeff. So I'll share with them what happened here. But for now, can you tell me a little bit about which property perhaps you were leaning toward the most, and what dates were you most interested in? Because what I can do is find a recommendation that not only is similar to that, but perhaps even a bit better. This gives me an opportunity to requalify. It gives me an opportunity to rebuild the relationship, to repair the relationship that was otherwise starting to get broken. 86% of us buy from people that we like. And the fundamental reason why guests are going to make a reservation with you is because they feel that they have a connection with you. So the emotional piece is a big deal here, very big deal. I can take care of the quote. And then after I send the quote, before I hang up, I'm going to say to this guest, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you. I'm going to follow up with you just to make sure that you received it, because things get lost in the mail, and I would just be so disappointed to learn that you had to wait any longer than needed. So I'll call you in a couple of hours just to make sure that you receive that, if that's okay with you, Cynthia. So that way I'm able to make her feel important again. All right, so do we get it? The idea of there are 2 things we're repairing here, emotional and practical. All right, so let's start actually using your scenario. Remember your scenario that you had on the front page here? I want you to hold that. Okay, we're going to take a quick stretch break. Everybody up. Everybody up. Hi. Instead of taking a 5-minute walk-away break, let's take a stretch break. If you have to walk away, walk away. We're going to do some stretches. It's a 5-minute stretch, 2-minute stretch, whatever you need. I just like to mix it up a little bit. Stretch your arms. Remember your scenario. I want you to think about that guest. Remember that time that you got hooked? Remember? God, I hated that time. Hated that time that I got hooked. I remember there was this one time, there was this guy who was yelling at me and he was pointing at me and he was spitting in my face. Just spitting in my face because he was so angry about having to wear a jacket in my restaurant. And he thought it was the most ridiculous policy he had ever heard in his entire life. And you have such gall. And he was just embarrassing. And I let him get to me. And I let him change me as a person. And from that moment on, I vowed to not get hooked again. So you stretch, you think about it. Ready? Okay. So let's go to this page. This page, it looks like this. Right? The first R. R, react. We already talked about this. I just want to review for you. Show emotion and remorse. Don't just say sorry. Listen generously. So listen to learn, digest aloud. Show that empathy for that guest, right? Try on that perspective. Talked about all of these things. So here's your do-over. Take a minute. I'm going to give you a minute. In your personal recovery situation that you chose earlier, how might you have been able to react differently? Make a note. Now that you know what you know, how might you have been able to react differently? What could you have said? What could have been a good cushion that you would have used in that situation? What could you have maybe contributed in terms of empathy, or how could you have shown that you were sorry instead of just said that you were sorry? Would anyone like to share? If you would like to share, go ahead and text chat what you put down. Because I'm sure what you add is something that someone else would benefit from. So in your do-over, what could you have done to react differently? If I would have shown that I was more sorry, I think that would have made a difference. I'm not seeing a lot of typing yet, so I'm worried that people are going, nope, nothing. Couldn't have done anything. Maybe there's one person out there. Amy says, I could have used more feeling words. All right. Feeling words like frustrating, like disappointed. I'm so disappointed. Remember, it's okay for you to share how you feel about how something happened too. I'm sure that when things happen, it bothers you as well. Sarah said, I could have used an example of my own experience to empathize with the guest. Yep, could have related more, get on that cushion together, right? You know, I had this exact same situation happen to me. Something else like this happened before. Definitely address the emotional aspect, right? So it's a game changer. It really is. And when you are able to acknowledge that I have the resilience to do this, or I'm building the resilience to do this, it's going to help you in so many phenomenal ways to be able to give that to that guest. Good. Okay, let's go to the next page. Our respond looks like this. Looks like this. Now, this is all about that separating of the practical and emotional root causes that we just talked about. But it's also some other things, right? It's about Not giving too much information. So here's a good example of too much information. I'm going to do my best to have like fake voices, right? So we have Mrs. Kariba and we have Marty, right? So Mrs. Kariba says, "Hi, Marty, how are you? It's good to see you again." And Marty says, "Hi, Mrs. Kariba. It's great to see you again. Welcome back. How have you been?" Mrs. Kariba says, "Just fine, thanks. How about you?" And Marty says, "I've been okay. You know, my husband and I just split up. Finding childcare for the kids has been tough." Mrs. Kariba says, "Yes, that would be difficult. So how is John doing? Is he still your supervisor?" Marty says, "Yes, John's still my boss. He's always in meetings, so I have no idea how he is. You probably won't run into him. He's so busy." Mrs. Kariba says, "Well, if you see him, send him my regards." "I will, Mrs. Kariba. Have a great stay with us." So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being perfectly fine and 10 being way too much information, where does this sit? Way too much information. I see some high numbers here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. 8s, 9s, 10s. Yeah. Couple of things here. Tone says a lot, right? Marty, without saying much, doesn't seem to have a very high opinion of her supervisor. Also says that this boss is basically a ghost, which doesn't need to be said. And I'm sure that many of you that are managers would not appreciate it if you knew that your employee Marty were saying things like this. So one of the ways that you can combat this idea of too much information is modeling what is enough information and making sure that you're not having transparent conversations like this in front of your guests about or in front of your employees about each other. Gossip. Remember those energy vampires? I think the other thing is to be able to share with them the list of things that are appropriate to talk about with guests and things that are not appropriate to talk about with guests. I think the reason why this is important is because you will have sometimes staff that don't know the line. They just don't understand. And especially if Mrs. Kariba and Marty have known each other now for 10 years, they're going to incline to the more informal side, and you'll have to be aware of that. So I think it's really important that you do take the time to say, I love having a relationship with our guests. I think it's important that whenever we are talking with our guests, that we're managing each other up, which means that we say good things about each other in front of our guests always. So if a guest asks about John, what I would like to hear you say is, would you like to see him while he's in town? I'm sure he'd love to see you. That's what I'd rather hear you say instead of, oh, he's always in meetings. I have no idea how he is. That would be the more appropriate answer. So sometimes a little scripting is going to help as well, managing up. Okay. So good. With this, the respond piece is about separating the practical and emotional, not giving too much information. It's also about giving a few facts. It's also being grateful for the information that's been given. And it's also about, tell me what happened. Tell me, give me some things that happened. How long did you have to wait? When were you told that your room was going to be ready? What happened, Mrs. Smith? Well, what else was going on when you heard that? Who shared that information with you? So not like an interrogation, like who shared that information with you? What time did it occur? I need to know exactly when. Do you have a copy of that? I want to make sure that this sounds really more empathetic, and this sounds like I'm interested. I want to know what happened. Not the Spanish Inquisition. Sometimes closed-ended questions can help you as well. Mrs. Smith, did the bellman provide a ticket by any chance? Was it just the size that was incorrect, or was it the color also? Would you like me to arrange that for you? May I follow up with you tomorrow? So sometimes just taking a second to be a little curious is going to give you the right ability to respond appropriately, not give too much information, and get the right summary. Okay, so in your personal recovery situation, how might you have been able to respond differently? Could you have asked more questions? Could you have separated the practical and emotional aspects of that complaint? Could you have done this? Could you have moved to a private setting? Could you have found the answer in their own words, or did you rely too heavily on the feedback from somebody else? Did you thank that guest for sharing everything with you? So go ahead and write your do-over on the bottom of page 8, and then for those of you that want to share, please tell me. I'd love to hear it. I'll give you 30 more seconds. You can share in text chat, and then we're going to keep moving. Sarah said, ask more questions. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We do make assumptions sometimes. Oh, I've seen this complaint before. It's the 17th time I've heard this one today. So we assume that we know the recovery. The other thing that can restoke a flame during responding is using you phrases instead of I phrases. And you can see it kind of in the middle of page 8. I know that you don't want to leave early, but you have to be ready at 8 a.m. for your ride to the airport, Mr. Johnson. Well, those you phrases are going to get you in trouble. If you would have spoken directly with reservations, I think you would have had the unit you wanted. Did you buy travel insurance? Where did you put your cell phone charger when you were in the restaurant? Since you didn't put the request in with our concierge ahead of time, there's not much I can do. So there's this sort of feeling of defeat and a feeling of blame, and there's a feeling of I don't care if the problem gets solved or not. And that can cause the flames to flare up a little more. So using I phrases, and you can see those on page 9, instead of if you would have told us sooner, which sounds like, yeah, it's your fault that you didn't say something about the heat sooner than this. Use an I message. So it could be something to the effect of, I wish I would have known about this a little while ago, but I know that we can find somebody that can take a look at that for you immediately. So I wish I would have known about this when you had checked in, because I would have been able to have engineering there for you immediately. I am just so happy that you're telling me about this now. Or if you would have told us sooner, I'm so glad that you're letting us know about this so that we can address it. So use an I message instead. This will be one of your takeaway pieces to prepare on page 9 for Thursday, because this is going to come into play as well for the written responses. So you want to make sure that you have this kind of thought about. Instead of saying things like, I apologize for the inconvenience, because what does that sound like? That sounds like you don't apologize for the inconvenience. What could you say instead? I feel just awful that this has happened. Okay, so you're going to practice with this. You can work in your groups. So Ruben, Sarah, Lynn, Maribel, all 4 of you could work together if you want. Jeff and company, you at Mount Bachelor, you could all work on this together if you want, but the goal would be to have something prepared for each one if you could. Okay, lastly, page 10. Well, not lastly, recover, page 9, or sorry, page 10. Page 10, yes, recover. Recovering with grace to create loyalty. This is where you get to fix it, right? You provide your 3 options and let that guest choose. I mean, how many solutions could there be, really? Let's say, for example, the guest cannot check in, the check-in time was 4 o'clock and they don't get checked in until 6 p.m. Well, how many solutions are there for that? Sarah, you gave one, which is move them to an upgraded room. Upgrade. Text chat. What are some other solutions? Guest isn't able to get into the room until 6 p.m. What's another solution? Offer game tokens. Offer yes, you're on the React respond screen. Yep, pay for them to go to dinner while we finish the room. So Deb, go to page 10 in your workbook, and I just have this up as a kind of a reference. So I'm looking in the middle of page 10 at how many solutions are there really? Ruben says, feed the guest. Jeff says, liquor the guest up. Melinda says, pay for them to go to dinner. Feed the guest while we finish the room. What are some other options? We could I mean, that's 5 right there. We could have a ski concierge come and grab them and get them on the slopes. We could have get them over to the spa so that they could change their clothes and that way they could get going. We could have them kind of set up into an alternative guest room. Yeah, offer another activity. Get changed in another room while they're waiting so that way they're able to go ahead and get skiing. And we'll move all of their belongings into their room as soon as it's ready for them. The punishment fits the crime, remember? So that's the second thing here is you have to make sure that if you took time away from them, you give time back. If you took the ability to impress their girlfriend away from them, give them the ability to impress their girlfriend back to them. Say what you're going to do and when. I'm going to text you within the next 10 minutes and let you know what I know. I'm going to call you within the next 10 minutes. Call first, especially if it's urgent. Text if it's not. Melinda, I've taken them to the grocery store since their car was full and the room was ready when we got back. Awesome. Melinda, that's pretty amazing. That takes a fair amount of time and effort and energy, but you know that makes a huge difference. Follow through, then follow up. Again, like I said, on page 14, there's a whole piece here that you can read about that. Or sorry, on page 12 that you can read about that. And also recover using the win that you heard, the practical aspects of the problem. So this is practical, not emotional. Fix the practical. Okay. So here's your do-over again. In your personal recovery situation that you chose earlier, how might you have been able to recover differently? Could it have been, I could have given more options? Would it have been the punishment fit the crime? Could it have been that I needed to follow through and then follow up because I didn't do that? And then the whole time I saw them for the rest of the week, they were giving me stink eye. Was it that I didn't say what I was going to do and when, and I could have done that? I should have done that. I didn't fix the practical aspects of the problem. I just kept saying sorry. How could you recover differently now? Take 30 seconds to write that down. Okay, so let's go now to my favorite part, which is the good old +1. The +1's at the bottom. Oh, this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part because this is where we get to have fun. This is where we get to do the cool stuff. Sorry, let me get there. So the cool stuff, what do I mean by the cool stuff? This is where we get to fix the emotional aspect of the complaint. So go ahead to this page in your book. It has kind of a little bouquet of flowers on it. It's supposed to be page 11. Page 11, so write an 11 on the bottom there. Okay, +1s. These are something unexpected. This is not fixing it because you already fixed it in Recover, remember? So what happens now in a +1 is that you're doing something extra, something different. So it could be making them feel, if they didn't feel special, then do something to make them feel special, like tie a balloon to the stuffed animal's little paw. Or if you notice that they have a cold and they're not feeling well, an offer of, when they get their room service order, offer a little bit of chicken soup and some throat lozenges or something like that. Things that help to fix the emotional aspect of the complaint. It could just be a handwritten note of apology. It could be something that focuses on the feeling of being, for example, made to wait, that suddenly they're feeling like their needs are being anticipated. So it's going to be pretty cold tomorrow, so we've taken the liberty of sending you hat, gloves, and scarves, our compliments. We hope that you have a lovely walk today on the grounds. And please definitely reach out to us if there's anything else that we can do to be of service, but we'll check in with you later. We've also taken the liberty of making a dining reservation for you at the exclusive Blue Room. If you would like to keep that, please let us know. We're also happy to cancel that if you would prefer not to dine there, if you've already made alternative plans. So things that are now making them feel very important and cared for can really take it to that extra +1. Sometimes it's just being perceptive, right? And I'm thinking of those of you in reservations, what +1 opportunities do you have? Well, if a guest says something on the phone like, oh, I really wanted a Porsche, if you say, is there anything else I can help you with? And he says, I really wanted a Porsche 911. Okay, well, obviously you're not going to get him one of those, but what you can do is maybe look online a little bit and find people that are selling them near him and send him some links and say, since you were talking about that Porsche 911, I did take the liberty of looking and I found a few people that are selling some in your area. In fact, there's a really cool yellow one that's for sale only 40 miles from you. So it doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something small and fun and funny. And I think the +1 is really where it goes from being, all right, I fixed it, to world class. I'm going to turn a profit now, because they're going to know that I really do value them and I love them and I appreciate them. And this is something that's meaningful. And this is where stories come from that end up going on online reviews. All right, so quickly write your do-over. In your recovery situation, what +1 opportunity could have been possible now that you think about it? If I had to do that all over again, what +1 opportunity did I have? All right. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I just hit you with a ton of stuff today to think about, and I hope it was all good stuff. I would love it if you would text chat me one big thing that you took away from today. One big thing as we're wrapping up here. One big thing. So I'll wait for those to start coming through. You're going to have a little bit of pre-work to get ready for Thursday. You've done a fair amount. Amy loves the +1. I'm going to go call the upset guest I talked to on Sunday right now. Yes. Nick, emotional state when entering a situation. Yes. Your resilience is key in where you come from. Jeff says perception is reality. Emma says strive to have a resilient mindset. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Melinda says, don't just use the 5-10 rule. Ask about their stay with every interaction. Yeah. Sarah, love the punishment fits the crime idea for solutions on guest issues. Amy says, how to better emotionally connect with guests. So we did that a lot, and I know it's a lot that I hit you with, Amy, so I'm sorry, but as you can see, Mastering the Art of Empathy is a day-long workshop that we do. Also, just generous listening and the idea of listen up, a generous listening event. That's a week, a day-long, sometimes a 2-day-long intensive. So I just went whoop, and I kind of crushed a lot of this together. Deb says, I like the +1. Mindset is contagious and being aware of the energy vampires. Oh, they're awful, aren't they? Thank you. Ruben, I have to work my mindset. I must avoid the preconceived notions before going into a recurring issue. Yeah. Shelby, use I and not you. Jessica, 12 positive experiences to make up for 1 negative. Yup. And Sarah, that good old cushion. You're going to think differently about that couch in your lobby now. All right. On Thursday, we've done a fair amount of your work already, but on Thursday, some things to do. Choose at least 5 scenarios on page 9 to solve, page 9 to answer with some I messages instead of you messages. Second thing is choose 5 scenarios. We did all the do-over sections today, which was fantastic. Choose 5 scenarios, did that. We're going to be doing that. I'd like you to also bring 2 letters or emails on Thursday. One that was responded to and one that was not responded to and one that was. I put was and was. It's supposed to be was not and was. So if you could do that, I'd be grateful. And then finally, share 3 things that you can use today with a friend or a coworker, okay? So if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. That's the deal. All right, same link, save your username and password, and I'll see you on Thursday. Reach out to me by email if you need anything between now and then. Here's my detail. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you on Thursday with your letters. Have a great day.